Welcome to the Punks on Hope podcast, where we talk about the intersection of punk rock and mental health. You know, it's all about DIY, but we are about DIT, do it together. So please,
what?
Isn't that so on point?
I love it.
Like,
yes.
subscribe, rate, stay connected, leave a comment. You know, show up, show your band, show your zine, your website, whatever it is. Let's stay connected with one another.
Let us know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Right?
My name is Mikey Livid. I got the
And
co-host.
I'm JOE Clements.
There we go. This is episode 1. To be all honest, this is our second recording because we're just getting used to this. We're going back in time.
Okay, cool.
So we both got back. Well, I know I got back from vacation. We went to each respective Disney's. I was at the East Coast. I'm out in Nashville. Joe's out in Santa Cruz, California. So I just got back from Disney World. You were at Disneyland. I saw you post on Instagram a really heartwarming story. If we're going to talk about punk rock, ultimately the most punk rock thing is Disney, right?
Totally. And you call it a vacation. It's not my vacation. My family loves Disneyland, but I've had a mixed. I love that you love Disneyland, and my kid loves Disneyland, but I have a mixed. Difficult relationship with Disneyland. There's some history.
Well, I saw a very heartwarming picture on Instagram and, a great story around you going to Disneyland recently. And I just want to hear it from the man himself. Could you tell me this, your relationship to Disney and all that?
Yeah. Well, people will hear it later, or maybe, you'll hear it from this episode, maybe. But my growing up, my dad, I'm not even going to say he tried his best. He was just a drunk and alcoholic, and all kinds of other drugs. And he finally got it together to take me and my brothers to Disneyland. I was about 10. And that's a fucking huge deal. It's like, we never went anywhere. And it was like, fuck yeah, we're going to Disneyland. We go to Disneyland, and we're in the park, super excited. There's this place called Tom Sawyer's Island in the middle. Yeah. And I think they have that at Disney World too, yeah?
For now, yeah.
For now, yeah. Until they hear the story, they're like, what? But so my dad was like, we need to go to Tom Sawyer Island. First thing we did. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. We were just bugging out. And so it's all these caves, and me and my brothers are kind of running around in them, and my dad's like, you guys go over there and I'll be over here. And not even 5 minutes later, I see my dad cuffed in handcuffs coming up. He got busted for smoking weed in Tom Sawyer's Island, and we all got kicked out. And we are behind the scenes, right? I'm seeing fucking the underbelly of Disneyland at 10 years old, and just going, what the fuck? Characters, with their, holding their head, I think Mickey was actually and it was just a dude under there. It's like, fuck, So anyway, fast forward, I just never was into Disneyland. I was actually fuck Disney, and then I turned it into fuck. That's the it's the epitome of American culture, consumerism. It started getting all punk with it, and really there was just some underneath kind of sadness is what I really learned. But fast forward is that my kid is 13 now. But since they've been 5, loved fucking Disneyland. Just loved it. And I was like, oh my God. And, I didn't tell you this, but one of the first, the second time I went to Disneyland with them, it was the first time I was just making everybody miserable. Just man, fuck this, And the second time, it might have been I don't know if it was, but I just got out of retreat from Joshua Tree. And I'm like, okay, I'm off retreat. It's going to be great, just fucking ready to just go and be with my family at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Bad fucking idea. I was just right out of retreat and just fucking talk about just sensory overload. And I was just and just really miserable. And the retreat high went away really quick. And again, everybody miserable. And my wife was like, you're never coming back to Disneyland with us. I'm like, oh, yes, I am not. Thank you very much. But I want to hang out with my kid. I want to see, you know, it's like, so, you know, I learned over time with practice, and I did one time, this is when it changed for me, was the mudita practice. And I remember, it might have even been at Disney World. And I like Disney World better. I really do. But, right. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. But I was like, okay, just feeling that overwhelmed, going in there. And I remember sitting in maybe the busiest part of Disney World and just sitting there. And my family was doing their thing for a minute. I'm like, I just needed some time. And I just sat there and I was just watching people. And I was watching people, and I was seeing the excitement, and all of a sudden mudita started, the appreciative joy. Just like, these people are, no matter how much, you know, it's fake or whatever I think, you know, they are enjoying them, they're excited. And I just started really, my heart started softening. And I'm like, man, these people are just they're really experiencing something that, you know, they maybe, you know, it's took a long time for them to get here, whatever the story was, and just kind of sat there for like an hour and really just softened into the experience of Disneyland. And it was beautiful, you know. And that's when I started seeing it through my kids' eyes, and I do enjoy rides and stuff like that, and so it softened a little bit. And then this last time we were going to Disney, that was a long time ago, and the last time we went to Disneyland, just recently, the whole time, I've been, you know, a handful of times with my kid, never went into Tom Sawyer Island for some reason. I was just like, you know. Some reason, yeah. And it was just me, my wife, and my son, and we're, you know, having a great time. And my wife's like, I've always wanted to take this canoe around. You can canoe around the island. And I'm like, oh, cool. So we canoed around the island, and it was actually peaceful, like, you know. And Echo's like, can we go to Tom Sawyer Island? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. And we went over to it, and it was so cool. Me and my kid were just running through these caves, and it was really cool. And all of a sudden, these members, I'm like, oh shit. It's like, it was almost there when I was a little kid, and I can see it. I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know if it was, but I'm like, that's a perfect place to smoke weed. That's a perfect, you know. So,
empathy for your pops, huh?
Yeah, totally empathy for pops. And me and my kid had a great time. We spent a good 45 minutes, almost an hour, just kind of running around and just sitting and talking. He knows the story, you know, and we talked about that and how special it was, and you know, that the aversion, and that's when I really saw the aversion for Disneyland and my get up on my pedestal of, like, you know, corporate machine and da-da-da, yeah, for sure. And there was just a lot of sadness, and there was a little kid that was really hurt and sad inside, you know. So I got to be with that little kid and play my own inner child stuff, you know, and there was some healing that happened, and it was really cool, man. Had a great time. So that was my, you know, not to turn every event into some kind of healing adventure, but it is, you know, especially when there's aversion, right? That's what the practice. Okay, what's the aversion? Let's sit with this a little bit. What's really happening, you know? And there was some healing that went on. So that was my Disneyland trip, and that was, a month ago, maybe?
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Something like that. I think so, yeah. Yeah, maybe that. And you just went.
Yeah, I just went. And, you know.
What was your insight?
Breakthrough. I wish I had something. I was like, oh yeah. I just rode like the new Tiana's Bayou ride, and that was fun.
Yeah, we went
out
on
with a bunch of friends. Yeah. So that was cool. And but like with your, like, I felt that, like, talking about the inner child thing, like taking the inner child to Disneyland. It's just like a wonderful imagery, and it's so true, right? And the idea of what this mudita, sympathetic joy, finding joy in other people's joy. I'm happy for you. That joy is a contagious emotion. So we don't even have to be enjoying the moment, but if we're around people that are enjoying the moment, we can feel that, because that contagiousness of joy, if we allow ourselves to. And that's gotten me through a lot of shit, you know. I think we've talked about it, these Joshua Tree retreats that had those dance things, you know. I was like, fuck these dances, fuck all these this hippie bullshit. And then it was like, bro, just, you know, I'm happy that you're enjoying this.
Totally.
And Yeah, like almost like exposure therapy at the happiest place on earth. So that's rad. I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'd love to have I want to pin this topic around mudita and the sympathetic joy, and I like saying appreciative joy because it helps us to learn to experience the joy. It softens our heart, and there is joy there too, so we can appreciate the joy that we experience without clinging to it. So I don't know if that's a Buddhist thing or something where I learned like there's like two parts of that practice, and it was really helpful for me to learn to appreciate the joy without clinging to it too. I think one of my teachers or one of my friends like kind of broke it down that way for me, which I liked. Yeah, and I think all the Brahma Viharas, the heart practices, they just soften our heart, right? They do that, and it's like gets into the innate heart qualities that are already there, and that experiencing joy through others is part of it.
So we're already diving into a lot of meditation talk. Yeah. And topics for episodes to come. We're on episode 1, and we made this kind of agreement for the first 2 episodes. Episode 1, I interview you. Episode 2, you interview me, and we start to get to know each other. And already, I'm hearing stuff about meditation, Buddhism, stuff like that. But how about we just get to know you? Do you watch Nardwuar? Like Nardwuar, the human serviette, that guy that just like interviews people. He was in some band that did I Got a Rash. Was there? Okay, but he always asks the question, "Who are you?" So like, if who are you? We got a punk rock, mental health, spirituality podcast. So who are you?
That's funny. Well, there's a joke, a Buddhist joke, if we want. It's knock knock.
Who's there?
Exactly. There's a lot of hats that I wear these days, but Joe Clements, born and raised right here in Santa Cruz, California, product of what I would say 3rd generation immigrants, I think, Irish and French immigrants, and my parents were I would say kind of these redneck hippies, which was Santa Cruz Mountains was like that in the late 60s, early 70s. My dad was 17, my mom was 18. I was just a product of that, and kind of that's where it started. My dad was just a big partier. My mom just wanted to have a family, She comes from a broken family, but it was weird, broken family, but family values were really big, so it was really confusing messages with her, and that carried on through my life. So I felt loved as a small child, but then I went everywhere with my dad. I was like, my dad was partying. I remember being around some of my earliest memories was being in this circle of him and his bros or whatever, and they'd always be passing around always a joint, and there'd be in a circle. I would always get a joint passed to me, always. Nobody would be like, oh, it would just be like, and I'd just be holding it, and I would just, pass and go, thanks, like not even questioning it. So from an early age, there was substances, I think I even one time they're called Reds, I think, or something. I don't have this memory, but my dad said that, I was on the picnic table and fucking all of a sudden I just fell off the picnic table, and I was like, and my mouth was all red, and I ate these red pills, which like Ludes or Downers or some shit. So damn. From an early age, it's like, here we go, eventually moved down to Santa Cruz, which only 15 minutes away from where I was with my family, and down in Capitola, and was the earliest memories I really have were like I said, I felt really loved I always felt loved, but I felt like I was everything, and then there was kind of where I was almost a burden when my dad, around 5, had to go to jail. He went there for about a year. Some stuff happened with him. My brother was just born, and there was a big schism in the family, so it was from I'm everything to like my mom was bugging out. There's a lot of shit going on. So It felt like I was kind of a burden, and the messaging from uncles and I was cried a lot, very sensitive kid, and always called a sissy and mama's boy and shit like that. So from an early age, then it was like I have a sense of like guarding, don't let them know I'm sensitive. I had to be some kind of toughen up kind of kid, or person, and that carried on through life as well. Got into skateboarding and drugs probably when I was around 5th grade. That's where, not skateboarding and drugs, but, I remember that's when I first started trying to escape, and stole some weed from my dad, tried to roll a joint, and I don't know if I got high or not, but yeah, man. And that kind of, when I first got high, I think that was like, oh, okay, this is it. I felt comfortable. I felt like a sense of belonging. There was something there, and I always wanted to be a good kid, but, and I for the most part was, but I think there was something that I felt like I couldn't live up to those standards, and I always felt really uncomfortable, and I think that's where the mixed messaging of family stuff is, my mom comes from like a broken family, but there was these family like values, and kind of compared to that with her brother and stuff, her older brother, and I was always felt like a little bit lesser than, and our family was treated a little bit lesser than in the family, so there was that kind of growing up with that. And over here in Santa Cruz, about 2 blocks away from the ocean, grew up there and started skateboarding, and that was my life in the early days.
Yeah,
man. I mean, I can keep going.
Well, yeah, no, but not to fast forward too much. But like, yeah, it was like, yeah, who are you? And this like, very vulnerable story about you. And so where has this taken you? Like, where are you at now?
Well, it's interesting to say, who are you, right? So with my practice, like, it's important. We can't change our past, but we can reflect on the past, and we change our relationship with the past by truly knowing it, So I've really done a lot of contemplation and reflection around this, because I feel like there's a lot of healing within my recovery and in my spiritual practice of meeting these parts of me. And some of the stories maybe are made up, but, still I have a sense of them. So, how I got where I am now, by happenstance, I don't know, really. It's like I grew up, when I started using drugs and just doing that was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to party and hang out with friends. My parents split up when I was about 12. That was a big mark on my psyche. That was a big, like, what the fuck. My dad actually bailed to go get sober, but he went to go get sober and go get clean, and that was kind of fucked up for me, right? Where it's like, okay, you're gonna go fucking square up your life and you're leaving us. So that was super weird, but the thing is, my dad, he was way into a lot of heavy drugs like coke and booze. And when he quit booze and coke, he was still smoking weed. And he would come back around, and I was already smoking weed with my uncle, his younger brother, and we started smoke. My dad started smoking. I started smoking weed with him, and that's how we bonded, really. And we had actually really cool times. He would take me everywhere. Again, I felt like that little kid. So the messaging there, right? It was like, this is how I'm connecting, and that just kind of escalated with, if I'm talking about addiction kind of thing. But overall, I really liked, I liked the adventure of it. I liked the freedom of it. And that's what got me into punk as well. And it was against everything that family value thing that I didn't think I fit in. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going all the way over here, So about 14, I think I went to my first punk show. I was listening to, I think, my first records were Corrosion of Conformity, Animosity, Raw Power, shit like that, and then Circle Jerks and Black Flag, of course. And I remember going to this punk show. It was with my one of my oldest friends, Noah Levine. I knew him since I was 14. Didn't really know him at first, and he actually was getting into this punk show. He would go into this one venue called Club Culture in Santa Cruz, and he would hand out flyers and get into the show. And he goes, "Hey, if you help me hand out these flyers, I can get you into the show." And I was like a skateboarder punker. Like, I had my biggest punk uniform was I don't know if you remember the suicidal button-ups with the things on the back. I had like one of those that said suicidal, and my hat flipped up and shit. And
fucking
this dude
cool.
this dude was fucking mohawk, leather jacket, and I'm like, holy shit, fucking real punker, kind of thing. And he lived with his dad, and his mom lived here, and his dad was like in New Mexico or something. So yeah, we're like, yeah, let's go. So we fucking popped some acid, or actually got a 40-ouncer, walked the tracks because the club was at the other end of town, which on foot took a couple hours maybe. Hammered by the time we got downtown, and there was this park that we could get acid, so we took acid. 14 years old, and go to this punk show that was just like, I was like, holy fuck, what is this? And it was amazing. JFA, The Faction, and another band called Caustic Notions. And it was bonkers, man. It was like, I've been to concerts before. I think I went to George Thorogood with my uncle, and I went to Ronnie James Dio, and these were like big old fucking things. But this was like fucking community, man. It was like the band and audience, there was no separation, even to the point where I remember me and a couple friends were talking to, I think his name, he called himself Bam Bam. He was the drummer for JFA. And just hanging back on the side of the stage, just talking to him for days or hours. And remember in the pit for the first time, just super scary and like getting thrashed, but people pulling you up, and it was just really cool, man. So the sense of community there, and I remember that just really impact, and after the show, walking back the tracks and just like, wow. So really got into that, going to punk shows, and skateboarding was always a staple. Go ahead. Yeah.
Let me, but like, just like, I don't want to glance over that you're like, yeah, it's 14. My first show is JFA Faction. And it's like, you're also talking about being like a skate punk kid. And those are like two like skate punk bands. And it like almost feels, maybe I'm in a spiritual space right now, but it almost feels like synchronicity. It's like, yeah, you're this like skateboard kid, and like these skate punk bands, that's like, do you get
it is
that
Santa Cruz
sense?
Too. Yeah.
Well, and you're in Santa Cruz, but but like outside looking in, do you get how rad your story is? Santa 100%. Cruz, JFA Faction, that's just so fucking rad.
Yeah, it's super cool, and I think Santa Cruz in general really had a great punk scene in the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, and early 90s. Was like really, really strong community in the punk scene, and I'm just grateful that I be a part of that. And I don't reflect how like special that is, but it is special. Yeah,
I would think about it every fucking day. That's so rad. I'm from redneck Northwest Florida, which we have rad scenes there, but it's like Santa Cruz, it's known for punk rock. And then, the two other things that I always say to you, two things, it's known for skateboarding and vampires, right?
Right.
That's another thing that I always like hitting you, like, oh, the Lost Boys, Santa Carla. And you're like, oh, my kid was out at the pier. And I'm like, the fucking Lost Boys pier. And it's like, you're like, you're living with vampires, That's
it's one of those things. I live in a beautiful, beautiful place. It's amazing, but you don't know it is, until it gets reflected like that, And nowadays I really not so much this punk skateboarder scene, but just the beauty of this place. It's like I'm 15 minutes from the ocean, and I live and I'm surrounded in a redwood forest, you know. So I walk in my backyard and I'm walking through big old redwoods, and it's beautiful, you know.
You're just fucking bragging now, huh?
Well, yeah, but I've learned to appreciate it, is what
Hell
I'm
yeah.
saying, right? I've slowed down enough to where, you know, it's a beautiful place, and you know, it's a beautiful place, and they try to make it really difficult to live here, like anywhere cool.
Yeah. Sure, sure.
Meaning it's just fucking expensive. Where anyway, I don't want to get back into that, but yeah,
Back into gratitude.
Back into gratitude. So yeah, that was like kind of my trajectory into, you know, punk and drugs and skateboarding. It was just it, you know, and partying, and was a runaway pretty much at 15. Lived with a friend that his parents let us do what we wanted to. My mom was trying the best she could. My dad was doing what he was doing with me, you know. It was just like a mess at home, and I just like, my mom really was trying to get this structure, and it was almost too rigid. It wasn't allowing me to just or understand where I was. I don't think she had the capability, you know, she was young, to really understand what was going on with me. It was like, my dad left, you know, she's trying the best she can. She has her stuff. It was just it was a lot, you know. So I bounced, and we had some really big blowouts. You know, she wasn't understanding the punk rock scene. I remember coming home with a mohawk, and she's like, "What the fuck?" and like threw a chair and shit like that, or
Yeah.
caught me, came home one time, I was so stoned. I remember I was like so stoned, and like I would try to come in and go to my room, and the door was locked, actually the front door, and I'm like, fuck. So I had to knock, and she opens the door, and I'm like, hey, try to not make eye contact, and she's like, look at me, and I'm like, huh? She's like, you're stoned, and just gave me this gnarly lecture when I was super high, and it scared the shit out of me, but it didn't work. I didn't stop. It didn't scare me straight. Sure. But it just was like, okay, I got to hide it better. You know? And so that was a lifetime of hiding it better, right? And
Yeah.
Even, you know, to how the extent of my addiction went, where it went to living in my car, strung out on heroin. You know, it was not a good scene. And, that was my lowest, was about 2021. You know, it was really just fucking at a bad place, and that's where it led me. You know, I wasn't doing much of anything anymore, besides getting high. Just really not even getting high, getting well. Yeah. At that point, I was just like, how do I not be dope sick? And that's when, you know, my dad was in recovery, and so I had some hints of what recovery was. Some younger people started getting into recovery. Noah was one of them, but I had a mixed thing with that. I remember seeing Noah, and he was really into this straight edge. He was into straight edge big time, and I was just like,
Noah Levine,
this shit?
Right?
Yeah, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And I remember seeing him at a show, and he would tag fucking, it was really stupid. He would tag Noah Core everywhere and big straight edge, which he got busted for. You don't fucking tag your name. But anyway.
Yeah. I wonder who did this.
Yeah. But I remember seeing everywhere, and I'm like, fuck that, you know? So I wrote drunk Edge, you know, Santa Cruz on my hat, and had it flipped up. And we saw each other at a show, and he fucking comes up and slaps it off my head, and he's like, what the fuck's this shit? And I'm like, I don't know, dude, you know. And so that was like, fuck this guy, you know? So when I was trying to get clean, he was the last person I really wanted to, you know, I didn't, you know, but he was super helpful when there was a small crew of younger people, and that helped me to get into like the rooms of 12-step, because, you know, I was going in with my dad once in a while, but it was my dad's thing, right? So I thought it was different. So after a few rehabs, it finally stuck. I finally stopped going back and hanging out with old friends and being the sober designated driver, because that never really worked. And I started this journey of recovery, and you know, do any spiritual kind of stuff. It had some. Didn't really even work any steps. I was just sober, and I was hanging out with sober people, and I started getting into music. And I always wanted to play music. I was always around the music scene, and even people that I lived with in different places. There was jam rooms everywhere, and I could kind of play bass, but I wanted to, but I could never get my shit together. And I remember it's like maybe a year sober or something at that time, and the one friend that his name was Bio Bob rules, and he legendary skateboarder, ran the skateboard shop right actually down by the boardwalk called Go Skate, and he would always hook me up. We'd hang out in there when I was a little kid and stuff, and I got to know him more, and he was like the only friend that still drank once in a while and smoked weed, but he never did it around me, and he didn't have problems like all the other friends I had. So he had a little ramp inside of his garage. So we would skate this little half pipe. I would just go every day, in early recovery, and just go skate this little half pipe of his. And him and his wife, they had a band, and they were playing. And I remember talking to him a little bit, and he's like, yeah, you should just come in and check it out. So I just was hanging out in there in the little jam room, and he kind of was nudging at me to like grab the mic, and I'm like, okay. And I just started fucking yelling into the mic whatever was coming to my mind, and everybody started looking around going, yeah, holy shit. I'm like, okay, killer, and then that went like that, and then he's like, I got some lyrics to this one song, would you want to sing them? I'm like, sure. And he hands me the sheet of paper, and it's called Gator Killer Skater. So it was
about Gator the Killer Skater, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
A fucking
So it was
song.
great. It was so perfect, and it had songs like that and Filthy Hippie and shit like that. It's pretty funny.
So wait, why was his name Bio Bob?
Just Bio Bob. He was really into for a while he was into I forget what they called it, like downhill skating, but like lunging or luging, where you're laying down, like kind of thing. And it just Bio Bob, and just always skating, and he was actually professional at that, and I think it's just a name that stuck for him.
But going back to my sensitive space of like, we're all products of our like causes and conditions. We're products of our environments, and just watching your environment create you. Who am I? And I'm just like watching it just unfold. Of like, it's fucking amazing as you become a singer just by being at this place, right?
That was it. Tell
me more, please.
Yeah, I see that more and more now. Like, if we can just get out of the way, kind of thing, right? And we see signs, and we just kind of what's coming, we can just be there for what is here to present itself with discernment is if we can. But that was that kind of thing where it just happened. And I was singing in this band Schlep, and it's just a small.
What's Schlep?
Schlep is like a Yiddish word for you're schlepping my bags kind of thing. You grab the bags.
Like stealing a bag?
No, like carrying
lifting?
bags, or like help me schlep my bags or some shit like that. I think. Yeah. I think, you should look it up. We'll reference that and put it in the notes maybe.
Probably
maybe not. No more work.
The world is wondering what the fuck is schlep.
Look it up. Schlep.
Schlep.
Yeah. We never recorded anything, but we played some shows and we were having a lot of fun. And then I was working at this Mexican food restaurant called Margaritaville. It's a big kind of party Margaritaville, of course.
Like the Jimmy Buffett place?
Yeah, well, it's like that's the name, right? But it's not.
But it wasn't like Margaritaville like it is now, like because that's like a chain.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it was different. Yeah. And that's where I actually met my wife, which was cool. I was in early recovery when I met her, and I was working there, and these guys came into work looking for me, and I kind of knew them a little bit. They're in a couple bands. One of the dudes was in a band called Good Riddance. I don't know if you've heard of Good Riddance.
Fuck yeah,
they're from
Seen
Santa
them
Cruz.
a few times. Yeah, fucking yeah, Santa Cruz. Yeah, definitely known for that. Yeah,
so it was a couple of the guys from Good Riddance and another band called Backwash. They were looking to form a new band, kind of more into the Pennywise, No Effects kind of stuff, and I was getting into that stuff a little bit more in those days. This was like maybe 93 or something like that, 94, and they're saying, hey, we're getting this band together, we would love for you to sing. And I'm like, all right. So we created this band. Our first practice was in the guitar player's bedroom. We had everybody just brought their guitars, no amps, and I had a microphone, but it wasn't plugged in. And they were just playing, how about this? And I'm just yelling this thing like, this is great. And that's how Fury 66 started. And that band really took off in the early 90s, and we did got really popular really fast, and became really a kind of a staple in Santa Cruz. Anybody from the 90s would be like, oh yeah, a lot of people first show and stuff, you know.
I told one of my homeboys from Florida, I was like, I started this podcast, Joe Clements. He sang for Fury 66, and they were like, oh shit, you know. It's like,
we were Pensacola. We did when we started touring. Pensacola was like we loved
Sluggos,
Pensacola.
Right?
Yeah, Sluggos. Yeah,
Sluggos is great. Yeah.
So that band went off and they stayed sober, but that was the thing. I think what happened for me was, okay, this is where all my energy, so my worth, my everything was in my band. Like, and if you didn't like my band, you didn't like me. It took it really personal, and and I knew there was a sense of like, okay, I cleaned up my shit, so this is happening, right?
You're sober when Fury 66
I was sober,
yeah.
So that I tied those together. I can't, and I started. People in the sober community, there's a strong young people's community back then, and we became like this not a straight edge band, but me and the guitar player in recovery, and that was my everything all through the 90s.
Y'all weren't a straight edge band, huh? I kind of got this hint that you kind of were. So is that anything like, because you're talking about Noah and about that story about him flipping your hat. Like on one end, it's like, I know in early recovery, I was a judgmental prick, and that kind of that's kind of, relatable, that we kind of go through that black and white aspect. But like, is that something you ever claimed, like straight edge?
Straight edge, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did, and got caught up in that for a little bit, and it was some self-righteous shit. I really came to. It was helpful, but at the same time it wasn't, and I feel like there was something inward, even when I was claiming it and getting, there was this pretentiousness, and I got pretty pretentious with my band, and, I thought I was pretty hot shit. My ego got really wrapped up in it. And, to the point where, I was just burning bridges, and if people that were, for instance, my good friend Russ Rankin from Good Riddance, their band got signed to Fat Records, and I remember it was like the bass player that was a part of Good Riddance, he's like, Fury's way better, I want to stay with Fury, and so he quit, and he's like, we need to kick out, we shared the bass player, the drummer, and Russ, who sang in Good Riddance, but he played guitar in Fury 66. Yeah. 3 members were in our band, right? So our bass player that said, the original bass player, he's like, we got to kick those guys out. We need people that are, dedicated to Fury 66. And me and Russ were really good friends. We were like, he was we were tight back then, like really tight. My wife Michaela, her sister Russ was dating, stuff like that. It's like we were both in recovery, and we were really tight. And I remember kicking him out, and he was devastated. And I didn't even think about it. I thought, like, oh, he would just be like, yeah, of course, I got to do Good Riddance. But he was devastated, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of fucked up our relationship. And that kind of it started this precedence. And, like, we went through members all the time. I would just fucking kick him out. It's like, you need to fucking, you know, be on our mesh, you know? It's like, holy shit, man.
There's always that, like, original magic. You know, the original lineup of a band has, like, a special feel to it. And it, like any band, you change members. And, you know, sometimes the magic is different, you know, but sometimes it comes back into a certain new type of, you know, feel. But
so we definitely morphed into all kinds of different stuff, but it was basically, you know, mostly punk. But yeah, you listen to the first demo, it was basically an EP in 7-inch Fury. It was Russ and Rich McDermott, who played on the first Good Riddance stuff.
Cool.
Such a different sound. And it was
is that
like,
available?
It was super cool.
Can we find that somewhere?
Yeah, you can probably. I think you can find it on. I think the original bass player just remastered it and put it everywhere. But that shit is super different than the second record we did after we kicked everybody out. There was a couple variations, and then, you know, we got some people that this younger kid that play guitar, and really good. I still am friends with him now, John Cadaveri. He has a band called Time Spent Driving now. And it's like really more into the real emo, kind of Midwest emo kind of stuff, but great songwriter. And he had this band called Illiterate, and he was great.
Okay.
He sang and played guitar, yeah. And we got him, and we basically wrote a record in fucking a month and put it out on this local label called Half Pint, you know? And
hell yeah.
Looking back is like, oh my God, me and the bass player from that lineup, I've been friends with him since, and he's actually playing bass in my new band called Hot Lung right now. And we were just in here yesterday in my studio, and you know, we talk about, he was doing some bass for Hot Lung, and we were just talking about, like, God, man, like, that is people loved that record from around here, but it definitely wasn't where we really wanted to be. It was just like we thought we needed to, you know, I was really getting into like Pennywise or Fat Records, so my voice went really high. My voice even changed. It was really weird, like, instead of having this dynamic. So we went through that stage, and then kicked out my friend John, who I became friends with my friend John. He actually was dating my sister-in-law, just like Russ was. It's so weird, you know, and we got really close, and then we kicked him out, and it was like, fuck, man, again, burning these relationships, you know. I was just on this mission and listening to what everybody around me said we needed to do instead of trusting my own heart. Mm-hmm. And the last lineup we had, we did No Perfect Machine, and we signed to a record label called Sessions Records, who, in the early days, I don't know if you remember this, but they did like a catalog where there's the only place you can get, like, before Hot Topic and all that shit. You can get band shirts, you can get all that kind of shit. They were a snowboard clothing company, and I knew the owner and the guy that was running the record label. They had a record label. They did tons of 7-inches with, like, No Use for a Name to I think we did one with Audio Slave. Remember Audio Audio
like
Slave?
Isn't that like Rage Against the Machine?
Yeah, but with like Chris Cornell, I think, singing.
What, you did a split with them? Like Fury 66 did a split?
No, the Sessions Records did a EP or a 7-inch for them.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so this label,
awesome.
They were doing all these cool, you know, the owner of Sessions had these ties with he snowboarded with fucking Kurt Hammett, is that what his name is, from Metallica? Yeah. And with the Beastie Boys and stuff, and he just had all these ties. Anyway, so like it made sense, and the actually person that was running the record label was one of my local heroes, Clifford Dinsmore, that sang for the band Blast, and Blast was they were that SST Northern California Black Flag kind of thing. They always got compared, but they're totally different. And Clifford was just my hero, man. He was like this fucking magical wizard, looked insane up on stage, like holy shit. And then I met him personally, and sweetest, nicest, welcoming dude I've ever met. And I'm still friends with him. We actually, his hip's been messed up and my back has been messed up, so he's been doing he's like, you gotta come to water aerobics with me. I'm like, okay. And ended up in water aerobics with my local friend, hero punker, with him and a bunch of older women in the pool. It was fucking amazing. I'm like, what the fuck?
From Blast, like
here?
The fucking brutal ass fucking Blast. Like, well, you know my theory.
Surf and
That's
destroy.
My theory.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah, that if the meaner the band, the nicer the members, the nicer the music, the meaner the members. Like, if you play fucking mean ass hardcore music, you're going to be a nice fucking person. If you play this nice stuff, I don't know about you.
It kind of goes, back to that early shit, the psychology, I would say, around it. Kind of like that sensitive kid in me, right? I had to put a lot of armor on, so I fucking wanted to really be tough and strong, tattoos and harder music and harder drugs, So there's some kind of armor with that, right? No, don't let them see my sensitivity. And anyway.
But that's like, this word, like even scene, right? Like when you're talking about your mom, like you come home high and she was a mom, definitely, right? And like what you learned when she kind of called you in on that was to hide, to not be seen. Right?
Exactly.
And then we go to a punk show where it's like, where I heard you give the word community a couple times in there when we talk about punk rock. Belonging. And that we could be seen. Me. And you could be you, and you could be seen, and you could be celebrated for being you, right? And that's kind of what punk rock is to me. Let's get on stage and be ourselves. Let's be ourselves at 10, but let's still be ourselves up there, right? Celebrate our messiness and whatever it is. But I'm hearing that value in you for punk rock about this word scene.
Absolutely. And that's, I feel like if there's any tie to spirituality in punk rock, that's what it is a sense of belonging and kind of this, we have, whatever is going on out there, we have this inner kind of circle kind of shit, more than even fuck the establishment kind of shit. It's just like, a misfit toys kind of, thing.
Hell yeah.
But yeah,
I feel sorry for those who don't have a punk scene, or the misfit toys that just like, it's a deep back to gratitude. I'm so grateful that I found my way into, a church basement one day and found a fucking punk show.
Totally. 100%. Yeah. And with the skateboarding community too, and just that whole kind of thing, it felt like we're onto something, right? It was like, yes, it felt really good. It felt really good because, like I said, there was such a sense for a long time that I was never going to fit in. The messaging was just, I don't have the things enough. I'm not smart enough, not tough enough, jock enough, whatever it may be, So I found like, this is enough. I'm enough in this, So yeah, I forget where I was, but with Clifford and kind of where I was in the band kind of thing. But yeah, the last lineup of Fury 66 was Sessions Records. So he was he ran Sessions Records, Clifford Dinsmore. So it was a no-brainer for me. I'm like, yes, let's do a record with them. We had like other Fearless Records, and we were really trying to get on Nitro Records. I don't know if you remember Nitro, and we were talking to them
Offspring?
a lot. Offspring's label. Yeah. And I think there was some talks with Revelation as well.
Hell yeah.
And we decided to go with Sessions. They were offering us a lot of cool stuff, and they really helped out. And what happened though was that Clifford was getting busy with something else, and he wasn't really able to do the record label stuff as much. And I started I was getting all controlling, like, oh, we need record's a record here and this stuff like this, and I was bugging a lot, you know, and that really sucked because I felt like I was putting some pressure on on my hero, and like I felt like our relationship was getting skewed, so it was really weird. But he stopped working for Sessions, and the owner asked if I would do it, and I'm like, okay, I didn't know what the fuck to do, but I just came in to Sessions Records and just started like calling record stores, calling different people, and just doing it. So I started learned how to run a record label.
Running it. Is that like, well, just like the whole thing? Just here you go?
The whole thing. Or? I was like, yeah, the fucking manager, fucking whatever, CFO, would that be, or something? I don't know. I didn't have anything.
It's punk rock. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I don't fucking know. It was like my friend Joel Gomez, Sessions Records, like, go for it, you know, and gave me a budget and went for it, you know, and started really just promoting my band, and then started getting other bands. And my friend John, who was in Fury 66, who wasn't anymore, he was doing some cool bands in Santa Cruz, more of, like I said, the shoegaze kind of, I don't know if it's shoegaze, but a little bit more the Midwest emo kind of stuff. But he was really smart with it, and I got him to help me work the record label, and me and him started doing some really cool stuff, you know, a lot of local bands and promoting that. So I worked at Sessions for a long time, and then me and Russ, the singer for Good Riddance, we started getting our relationship back in together and stuff, and we started a record label called Lorelei Records. And I really just would have fun and do that. And for Sessions, it was basically to promote my band. And then it was like, cool, you know, it's like a cool thing to do. Like I got my band, I'm working at a record label, and had some really good opportunities and a lot of fun with it. And yeah, that kind of went into like, this is another pivotal kind of part of my story, is when Fury 66 broke up. It was like, what the fuck? That was like huge, because for me, my everything was in that, even my recovery, right? I was like, I really like, that was my, if you know, they always talk about a higher power kind of thing, you know, if there was anything, that was it. Like the better show, the bigger show, that kind of like that strive to get somewhere kind of thing, you know. You know, and my recovery was tied into that really a lot, you know, where, you know, I knew that if I was getting loaded, it was apparent to me, I wanted to be in bands before, but when I was getting loaded, I couldn't join a band. Nobody wanted, you know, anything to do with me really. So sobriety, band, success. Yeah. So it was like, okay, you know, stay sober, you know, and I had this whole image of the sober, you know, straight edge once in a while kind of thing. Yeah. You know, I would smoke cigarettes and stuff. And so you know, anyway, when when Fury broke up, it was devastating for me, you know, and I was, me and my wife we were engaged to get married. And when the band broke up, I was like, what the fuck, you know, that was my everything. And I was, disbelief kind of thing. And, you know, we broke up at a time when we were at our peak. We had like, I remember the week we broke up, or the month we broke up, I was the contact person, and we had like I said, like 4 or 5 record contracts mailed to me, Revelation being one of them. It looked like Nitro was going to happen, Fearless definitely going to happen, if we wanted to. So we had a bunch of options, and I had to tell all these people no.
Why'd y'all break up?
Well, a bunch of different members coming and going, and the only original members were me and the other guitar player. And he decided he wanted to stop and go back to school. And the bass player and the drummer, like, we were having this band meeting. I was so blindsided. We were having this band meeting, and we were talking to Rye, who was the guitar player, and then we were going to talk about what the next things to do. And you know, when Rye said his thing, then the drummer's like, yeah, I feel like I'm done too. And then I looked at the bass player, and he goes, yeah, man, I'm done. And I'm like, what the fuck? There's no big reason. It was just, I think everybody was tired. We were on a run. We were doing tours with back-to-back tours. AFI, we toured with AFI a lot.
Fuck yeah.
Another band called 88 Fingers Louie, which is Joe from Rise Against. We have a funny story about that as well. You know, so we're at this peak, and it was devastating for me. And, you know, so there was like a few things that happened in this short period of time. The one thing was funny, that back to the Joe from Rise Against, I get a phone call from, this was a landline because there's no cell phones at the time, from Joe, and he's like, "Hey man, you know, they kicked out their singer, or the singer quit, Dennis," and he goes, "Yo, you know, we want to keep going." Like he either wanted to keep going with 88 Fingers Louie or start a new thing. He goes, "What about, would you be interested in singing?" And I'm like, man, I was engaged with my wife, and you know, the wedding was maybe a few months after that, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just, you know, still devastated from the band. I'm like, I don't want to commit to anything right now, you know. He goes, "All right, let me know if you change your mind." And, you know, they went on to form Rise Against. So I don't know if I missed an opportunity. I don't think I could sing like that dude. But anyway, that was kind of interesting, right? Speaking of one of those things, like, do you take that opportunity or not, right?
What could have been.
So anyway, that wasn't.
I think any of us that play music have a couple of those.
Yeah,
what could have been, but that's a big fucking.
It was big, too. But I mean, Rise Against is that singer and songwriter. He's fucking great. He's amazing. Sure. Not that I don't want to diminish. I'm not, you know, my capability to do things and write a song, but you know, who knows what it would have been.
Right. Yeah. But
you know, so I kind of turned this corner where I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. You know, I'm not going to be. I'm going to be everything that my wife's family wants me to be. You know, we're getting married. We're going to do this stuff. You know, I'm going to be that guy. You know, and because I was so I was even anti getting married. I'm like, nah, fuck, you know, I'm punk. You know, I just want to be on tour all the time. And I tried different bands and getting bands together, and it always fell short. And there's something empty inside, and that's when I started sneaking drugs again, sneaking prescription stuff, and just like, you know, things like that, fake backache, or going through people's fucking medicine cabinets, but sneaking it because I still had this image, right, of like the sober guy, and my wife only knew me sober, and shit like that. And me and my wife got married, and beautiful, and but you know, I tried different bands. I was actually going down south playing with Andrew from Strife. He started a band called Turn Down. It was kind of more of a Lifetime kind of band. Okay. And I actually signed them to Sessions Records, and I don't know if they kicked out their singer or they just said they wanted me to sing for them, and I'm like, okay. And I don't even think they kicked out their singer. We started playing, and I thought that would be my opportunity, right? LA, I'm going to LA.
You're using at this time?
And I'm chipping away, yeah. Not a lot, but you know, I'm doing once in a while, and still sneaking it, trying to whatever, and eventually just went all in and relapse. I was in relapse, and you know, I opened up a recording studio because I started recording bands. People were asking me to produce their bands. I produced my wife's band at this recording studio, and the guy that owned it goes, "You have a really good ear. Would you be interested in doing this?" I'm like, "Oh, I love the studio. I love being in the studio." So yeah, so I started learning how to record bands, and eventually opened up my own recording studio where I'm at right now. This was like 2005 or something like that.
Woo!
And
been a while.
Yeah. And you know, that was kind of a downfall too. It was like having a studio, being long hours, and I was just like fucking, just like, yeah, let's go, you know. And
yeah, studios and casinos, you know, there's no
hours
windows.
Hours just go by so fast, man. Yeah. But yeah, that was my thing, is recording bands, and did pretty well in the early 2000s, and recording a lot of punk bands from around here. I was the place to come, because I had a place that was good equipment. I knew what I was doing, and I had a great price. Just like, yeah, just come in and do records in a weekend, right? That kind of
Hell
style.
yeah.
So, dude, we got 12 songs. We have fucking 2 days budget. All right, let's go. I knew how that was. But yeah, I was in full relapse mode, and I remember, just trying to make it work. And the one thing I prided myself on, I'm like, at least I'm not doing heroin, and that was the downfall. I ended up in a place where I was copping heroin again, and I remember coming back. I was in a band called Crucial Unicorn at the time.
Fuck yeah, what a great name.
Yeah. And even music wasn't doing it for me anymore. I loved the music we were doing, kind of like Sam I Am meets Seaweed, Quicksand kind of stuff.
Cool.
And I remember doing my little heroin stash, and didn't even feel high. I just felt like I still was miserable. I thought it would make me feel better, and then drank like a 12-pack of beer or something like that, and still felt miserable. And then we had practice, still felt miserable, and was just fucking so depleted. And I remember like they talking 12-step, if I had that gift of desperation, I was like desperate enough even to just go. I knew what to do, just go back to a meeting and humble myself in a way, right? Like I didn't want to see all those folks, because I was a big part of the sober community around here. And then when I relapsed, it's like I just felt really judged, but went back and started doing the things, doing the deal, and working with others, working the steps. And the one thing I never did though was like the higher power stuff. I was like, yeah, whatever. I'd look to like the tops of trees or something, and it was like, okay, yeah. And that was 14 years ago. And it was interesting. I still had the studio. I still, had, my wife didn't leave me. So I had all the things.
Great.
But I was just depleted inside, and I remember like a year into sobriety and into recovery, I was really agitated and angry. It was just like really bitter. And my kid was just born, and I was just like, I was trying to control everything. I didn't think I was good enough at anything. So I was overcompensating, over-proving myself kind of thing. And, I was just miserable, and I was making everybody miserable around me, especially my wife and maybe my kid, everybody around me. And I was just fucked. I didn't know what to do, because I didn't want to feel that way anymore. I didn't want to live that way. And I'm like, this is not a way to live. And I knew that drugs and alcohol weren't gonna do it. They stopped working for me. And that's when I was desperate enough. I was when I got back into recovery. I'll rewind a little bit. Noah was hitting me up, going, you should meditate. I'm like, oh, fuck you, dude. No way, man. I got my thing. He's like, I'm doing this new thing called Refuge Recovery. It's a Buddhist recovery. I'm like, whatever, dude. I was never into the Dharma punk shit like that. I always just thought it was whatever. I was like, because I was whatever with all that shit. And really, I'm like, meditation doesn't work. I tried to meditate one time. I even tried to tie my legs in a knot and went to this group, and it was just like I couldn't fucking sit still. I couldn't keep my eyes closed, and I walked out of that group going, these people are lying. There's no fucking way this is working. It was making it worse for me. So anyway, I reached out to a couple. I reached out to Vinny Ferraro, who was a good friend of mine. Met him in the early 90s and became friends with him, and reached out to Noah, and they were both teaching down at a place called Big Sur, Esalen, down in Big Sur. And they're just come down to this place and just hang out, and I'm like, all right, yeah, and went down there, and Enrique was there. I don't know if you know Enrique Colazo.
He was
there. He was
retreat or two with him.
Yeah, he was. I think he was in the teacher training program back then, one of the first ones, and there's a few people. I'm
empowerment.
I remember. I remember
we were
that.
both
I was
there
too. Yeah.
Not even
that
knowing each
might have been
other.
the dance thing. Yeah,
That fucking okay.
Yeah. I don't want no PTSD for you right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But yeah, I went down to this retreat, and I was like, I think I was talking to Vinny or something like, man, I don't think this is gonna work, man. I can't stop my mind from thinking. And he's like, yo, dude, nobody can. And I'm like, what? I'm like, then what's the point, man? I just want to feel this way or think these things, But what I learned from some really simple practices of just shifting awareness for a moment, that one, my nervous system started regulating, and in those early days, in that first one, it's like there was little glimpses of like, oh, this is doable even for a moment, and it was a beautiful place, Big Sur in Esalen. I don't know if you've been there, seen pictures. It's fucking beautiful. It's like you're basically land of bliss just going there, But and it turned me on enough, and I was lucky enough that Vinny and Noah were teaching a lot back then together, and I would just go to these retreats with them. I'd go to classes. They would invite me to retreats. I was basically this roadie for these meditation teachers. I remember sneaking in because I couldn't afford any of it, so they would sneak me in, and I would like sleep in like the yurt closet where all the pillows were and stuff like that. I'd come crawling out when the meditation starts, or it'd be like the assistant. I would be ringing bells, between sit periods. And
awesome.
What I learned with these simple tools and letting the anger kind of subside and seeing the anger rise is like, oh, there's stuff underneath that anger. That frustration was worry, self-doubt, all that kind of stuff, and got to investigate that. And so I couldn't stop my mind from thinking, but through this practice, I learned that I can change my relationship to the way I thought, the thoughts themselves. I can change the relationship to the way I felt. And at first, I got to get to know it a little bit, right? So that was just began my journey of spirituality. And the first 5 years, basically, I was just going to retreat every month, just going to these 10, 12-day retreats. And me, Noah, Vinny, and my friend Micah, they went to India back in maybe 94, 95, and they really wanted me to go, but I was in band mode. I'm like, oh, nah, some spiritual shit for you guys. You guys go fucking do that. And that's what inspired Dharma punks and all that stuff in their journey of teaching and stuff. It was very powerful for them. So I think it was 2015 or 16 or something. They're doing this anniversary for their trip back to India. And they're like, you're coming with us this time. I'm like, all right, so I went with them three, and that's where it was another pivotal thing for me in my practice of just being in India, and that talking to Vinny a lot, actually, and Micah, and Noah, but Vinny and Micah were running this thing called, and they still are, is called Mind Body Awareness Project, where they bring in mindfulness and like they call it mindfulness interventions kind of thing to juvenile halls. So just holding space for the kids in the hall. Kids in the hall.
Kids in the hall.
And I was like, I want to do something like this, For the most part, I was like, I want to learn how to offer groups and stuff just so I can hang out with my friends and do, sound like a fucking cool adventure to be a part of, And that was back in the Against the Stream days when it was really strong. And so when I got back from India, that's when I started doing some training to bring in groups to juvenile halls, and worked with Mind Body Awareness Project for a couple years. And that was really where I learned the most about leading groups. It's like you go in with intentions, or structure, and then you let it go.
Yeah.
You know, because you're just there, and like kind of really got to know, leaning into like tracking the room and what are they willing to do, not willing, and that started me on my journey of offering, and did teacher training with Vinny and Joanna Hardy, and really got into offering stuff, and was just getting asked to do stuff. I got asked to do this like a Buddhist recovery group thing. Just Dave Smith actually was doing this orientation for refuge at a place called The Camp here in Santa Cruz, and I just went there to assist Dave and just kind of hang out. And he's talking about refuge and how they can implement it into their rehab, and they're like, "Oh, great. So can you do it?" to Dave. And Dave's like, "Nah, I live in LA." And he looks at me and he goes, "But Joe could. He lives right here." And I'm like, I can't do it. No fucking way. I had no
that seems
desire.
Very Dave, too.
Yeah, totally.
You're going to go do it now.
Yeah, you got it. And but that started that, and then I started just going. At first it was just doing refuge, and they wanted me to do more. I was just doing like kind of H&I, if you will, outreach kind of stuff for refuge, but then they wanted me to do something more. And so I started doing these offshoot groups and got somebody to do the other stuff for refuge, and just started kind of honing in what mindfulness, what practice, what Buddhism, how can I talk to people that aren't Buddhists. And that's kind of, but still talking about the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and the stuff that really was beneficial to me, but taking all the ism out of it, and kind of where I really refined my message. And that was like 8 years ago. And I've been continuing to do that. I don't go to the juvenile halls anymore, but man, it's been a journey from then to now. There's so much, being a part of a community, and then the community imploding because of allegations and the teacher and stuff like that, and then my own friendship kind of things, like am I friends with this person? It's like really got really fucking weird and uncomfortable in a lot of ways. I stepped back from offering anything outside of the rehabs. I didn't want to. I was almost like, I don't even want to fucking have anything to do with Buddhism. I felt really disheartened with the people, with the teachers, with friends, and just like I was really confused. And I had some opportunities to do some stuff, and I just said no, and took a break and just started doing my own practice, and was still doing the stuff at the rehabilitation centers. And just a couple years ago, I started offering one-to-one support with people that were getting out of the rehabilitation centers, and then caught wind that I was doing that, and people wanted me to start doing, I got asked to do an outside group, and so I started doing an outside group, Santa Cruz meditation group, and that's been doing really well and growing, and we were bouncing around to building, and I put this intention out there. It's like, I want to find a permanent home for the meditation group. I don't want to have to fucking keep bouncing around. And I remember even writing it down. I will find a meditation or a home for the meditation group. And 3 months later, my wife is, she's very business oriented. So she's looking for a place for me to lease out that was affordable. And we couldn't find anything, but then she found this piece of property that is in Santa Cruz proper, a little bit right outside, and she goes, "There's this building. I think we should buy it." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" And she's doing an investment for the family and stuff, and she goes, "You could just use it for your group." And I'm like, but then maybe you can find people to come in and offer other stuff. And I'm like, fuck, that's not what I was signing up for. But that's where I'm at right now, is rebuilding this place and for my group, and then getting a little crew of people together to see what we can do, other offerings that are like-minded, because the spiritual realm could be kind of wooey, kind of off-putting a lot of times, and kind of want not something that's so punk rock and we're so different, but something that people just feel comfortable. They don't have to be a certain way, wear a certain outfit, or even speak certain languages, like even Buddhist stuff, so but there will be, we'll lean into some of that stuff with some of the teachers that come in, and I lean into it too here and there. I've kind of had a new relationship with what Buddhism and in my practice. It's the root of my practice and what I offer.
Show that respect to the people of the past.
Totally, totally, and that's a whole nother topic I'd love to have, but I feel like I've been just rambling here, but that's where I'm at today.
Yeah, I asked you one question, right? And
I know, and I'm just rambling. I think it's the C4 that I drank.
Oh, that's what's going on. Okay, all right.
I was feeling tired.
Where does that stay on the straight edge? Spectrum?
I'm not straight edge. I'm in recovery.
But yeah, thank you for all of that. And it's like, let's once again just watching just like the flow of life turn you into you, and all these experiences that you went through, where on one end, if we're talking about this podcast, that we have two arenas we're really looking at. We are looking at the one end, punk rock, and what that means to us, and then the other end, it's really the spiritual side of things.
Yeah.
Right. And how you live in this world with both of these, where the punk rock side, you're talking about like Fury 66 or getting into punk rock. And then this other end, getting into addiction recovery, getting into meditation, even some Buddhism and stuff like that. And so looking at these two worlds, like, what do you think we'll start with, maybe we can do this vice versa, what the punk rock world can learn from the spiritual world?
What can the punk rock world learn from the spiritual world? It's an interesting question.
Or your spiritual world, your spirituality.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, so the spiritual world, especially with, I feel like from my spiritual world is, that's an interesting question. I don't know about learn, but I feel like it's more of a welcoming space to explore. And it gives it, I feel like the Buddhist practice is very self-empowering. It's like we have the power within us. Everything we need is right here. So I think on that is maybe punk rock or whatever, but it's like we don't need to conform to anything. You don't have to be anything to do this. You don't even have to be Buddhist to do this. I don't think, right? It's just a way it's some tools to be with this human experience that is more practical. Right. I mean, we can make that's where, I grapple with, where we can make this Buddhist thing so big, so much bigger than it is, but it's really not. It's really simple practices of regulating the nervous system and giving the tools to explore, to be curious about what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, noticing the mind clinging, pushing away, and knowing these are the habits of the mind, and we can retrain the mind. So I feel like it's more of a, I would say it's more self-empowering, which is totally punk ethics, right? And that you don't have to conform to anything. You don't need to have anything outside of you to heal yourself. And the sense of community, we're doing this together, right? It's I feel like community is key in this kind of stuff, and whether it's recovery or spirituality, I do feel like it's one of the three refuges, right? It's like Sangha, and I think it's quoted as Buddha saying something around it. It's like that's the most important one to take refuge in, is Sangha. And in recovery, the service, what do they call it? There's on the coin, but it's the fellowship. So, sense of belonging, universal truth, sense of empowerment, I think, Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Talking about how we're affected by our conditions, I really felt that in a transformative way to hear you even say that.
Yeah.
And then how about the vice versa? What do you think your spiritual world even can learn from your punk rock world?
Yeah. I would say kind of almost on the flip where, one, it's kind of being in the moment, like you're and feeling the energy of what is going on. And, on the flip of it, of that you don't have to conform to anything, you don't have to, that was a huge thing. And I work with people still. It's like, we want the right formula. Like, what is, how do I become the perfect Buddhist or the perfect meditator? It's like, that craving, even that turns into a craving, right? So meeting yourself right where you're at, I think, in keep evolving, but meeting yourself right where you're at. This is where I'm at, and this is how, and that self-empowerment, that's sustaining, where we take what we learn from community, from our mentors, from all the different groups and stuff that we do, but really we take that in to, it's not what we do, it's who we are. It's not, punk isn't because I put on a fucking leather jacket and a mohawk. It's because it's who I am. It's just, it's part of me. It's ingrained in me. And I think that's the same with spirituality. I think it's the same where it's like, it's not what we do, it's just who we are. And I think the Buddhist practice and the meditation, mindfulness and self-awareness keeps pointing towards that. That everything we need is embody it. And I see it all the time, and I've been a part of it. It's like this craving to be more spiritual. What is the right modality to do? What is the right teacher to sit with? So it's like they're all pointing to the same place, right back to your heart,
Yeah, it's like crass. It's like the spirituality of crass.
Yeah.
There's no authority. There's no authority but yourself. Right?
Exactly.
And how we keep on looking for this external refuge to validate us, to tell us we're doing it right.
Yes.
And it's just like, nah, there's no authority.
Yeah. And it's no authority, and it sometimes it can be scary, right?
Yeah.
Just tell me what to do, So I think that's where it's important for us being in these seats of offering. To like, that's the thing that I really I'm careful with, is like, we have a obligation to hold the space, to but not abuse it as well, right? To where it's like, because I've seen that where it's like, it's no guru kind of thing, but people are coming they want some answers. They're feeling fucking like, where's the ground beneath my feet? And that's all we're doing, is showing them the ground beneath their feet, and doing it in a way where I got to realize that these people need some kind of direction and some kind of support, but how is that, rather than this is the way you got to do it, so there's a both, right?
Yeah, definitely.
The non-authoritative kind of thing, but at the same time, there's an obligation here.
Yeah, and that's like punk rock. It's like we're doing it together, and I ain't going to tell you how to do it.
Exactly.
Here's
the way I did it.
Here's the way I did it. Right?
This might work for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You got time for a few more?
I do, man. I do.
Okay.
Do you have time? I feel like I've been talking for days.
Oh, I fucking love every moment of it. So
yeah, cool,
I love listening. Cool. So thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe some, just random questions, because I want to get to know like the punk rock side of you a little bit more. So the Mount Rushmore, who's, I think there's 4 on Mount Rushmore. Who's your punk rock Mount Rushmore?
Descendants.
Okay.
Yeah. So I need 4 of them.
4. Yeah. Descent, a great answer.
I mean, for me, the most pivotal ones, Descendants. I want to say Black Flag just because, but early days Black Flag, like Dez.
Black Flag. Dez early.
Yeah. That, and I don't know if you'd consider them punk rock, but they were huge in my my spiritual journey. And is Shelter. Shelter was like
they're punk, right?
Huge for me. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they are. What would be the fourth? Bad Brains. Holy shit! I almost forgot the Bad Brains. Yeah,
That's a good four.
For sure. Yeah,
that's a good four.
Yeah, Bad Brains and Descendants really being like does definitely. Yeah.
Well, we could. Do you have another four for like if we're playing this boundary or this game of like punk rock and spirituality? Do you have a four of like spiritual teachers?
Oh, spiritual teachers?
Yeah, Mount Rushmore of your spiritual teachers.
Like who now or inspired me in the past?
Oh, either. Yeah.
Right now, I really enjoy Jeff Foster's message. I don't know if you've heard Jeff Foster, but he's more of meditation, non-dualistic kind of stuff. He went on that, but he's really into the simplicity of just meditation, of just like direct awareness, effortless awareness kind of thing. I really love his message. Ajahn Sachito, yeah, I really love him. Love his stuff.
He's right now. It's like this guy, right? Isn't his
no, isn't that Ajahn Chah?
Oh, is it Ajahn Chah?
I think it's Ajahn Chah. I'm not sure. Sachito has
Ajahn Chah's got a good one.
Yeah, I think Sachito has the really deep British accent. Really deep. Pema Chodron for sure. I just think these are people that, yeah.
You got one more.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I've sat with him once. I mean, I would say Vinny Ferraro for sure. He's just been a really great support for me, and he's taught me a lot. And still, it's like teaches me, and I just love the way it's very heart driven, and that's I really from the early days of my practice, I really loved his kind of openness and heartfelt practices. So say Vinny.
Yeah, and it's really sweet that you could put like a friend up there too.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering if I should put a friend up there, but totally. There's tons, I mean, some of the best teachers sometimes aren't the ones that you really are fond of because they're teaching you something. And Vinny's a rock star. I want him to be a rock star. Sure, so if you're listening, you haven't heard of Vinny Ferraro, he's got a few new 10% Happier podcasts out there. I've seen running around, and Big Heart City is his meditation group.
So like me being in the Southeast, like I appreciate Big Heart City because they have so much available online. Because I know Vinny didn't have a lot online for a long time, but the website, I go to the website and just listen because there's like a big SoundCloud of all of it, and then they do online resources. But I just love Big Heart City. Just going there to their
and most
website
of his
and
stuff
listening.
is online. Even his groups and his day-longs are. I think he does one in person a month up in the city. He lives in Santa Cruz now, which we're like 45 minutes an hour away from San Francisco.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm getting to like my hot seat questions now. We talk about playing hot seat in like treatment centers and stuff like that. So if they were going to sweet seat, I've been using sweet seat ever since I heard you say that. Cool. Group therapists know what we're talking about, and that's about it right now. But so if they were going to make they were going to make a blockbuster movie about you, what would be the name of the movie? Who would play you in the movie, and how would the movie end?
All right, not the book. Okay. I like the art of fumbling.
That's good.
The art of fumbling. Christian Slater.
Christian Slater. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Only because like when he gleaming the cube. Do you remember?
I instantly gleaming
and
the
like
cube.
somebody said,
fuck,
"Oh, you kind of." I think my mom even said it or something. But you kind of look like him. Like, oh, really?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
what a compliment.
Christian Slater. Yeah. And what would the ending be? Is that what you said?
How would the movie end?
That's a hard one, right? Where I think it would have to be a sequel because it's not over yet. You know,
to be continued.
To be continued. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I love. My Name is Earl. You remember that show? Yeah. So like how
Jason
it's
Lee.
about. Yeah, Jason Lee, skateboarder, but how it's about a guy that's trying to like purify his karma because of reincarnation or whatever.
Yes,
and the last episode, I don't think it was on purpose, but the last episode of My Name is Earl said to be continued. And I thought that was just like so fucking funny that a show about reincarnation.
That. I used to love that. Yeah. And I haven't watched it since I've been in the practice. I probably have a different view. Like, I barely remember that, but now you're right. You're totally right. It had that reincarnation. Yeah.
I hope they did it on purpose, but I don't think they did because it got canceled. Do you believe in ghosts? Why or why not?
It's interesting. So ghosts are spirits, right? And I think there is a difference. And I do believe in something like that. I do believe in that there's something with unhealed energy that needs to be, and I think that we can play a part in that. And there's not a lot of trust in it, but I have a sense that, so I don't know if and I think some people say there is a difference between ghost and spirits. Like, I forget what the difference is, but I do, there's some kind of energy force that is either here and healed, just kind of in the trees and everything, and then there is maybe the ghost is more of something that like they're trying to like help me fucking get to the next in some way, and this could be ancestors or friends energy kind of stuff. So
devas, right, from a Buddhist perspective, right,
from the Buddhist perspective, so
and from a Buddhist perspective, we are all unhealed energy, huh?
Totally.
Even humans. And
it's interesting. I love that you say that because in a lot of circles, in the Buddhist circles, that it's so taboo to even say shit like that, right? So I do feel like, me and Josh Corda. I forgot Josh Corda. Could there be a fifth person?
Great. Dharma Punks NYC. Shout out Josh Corda, great
man.
teacher.
I still meet with him like once a month, once every other month.
Cool.
Yeah, he's one of my mentors. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, he brings in this kind of stuff. He goes, this is I was starting to get into some ancestor work too. I've had some experiences on retreats, and it was pretty vivid. And I still do. And so I was kind of going down a rabbit hole with it, and I'm like, this is too much. So I stepped back. But so, there's definitely, I've been called a witch for sure, and cool, I'm down.
This is probably just for me, but it's amazing to hear that Josh Corda gets into like realms and stuff like that. Yeah, because listening to him, he's very analytical, very clinical, intellectual, clinical. That's really, that's rad. That's heartwarming. Yeah, he does some of that other work, huh?
He does. Yeah,
I would love to hear more about that because, I do think sometimes we get, overly materialistic. We get so obsessed with the material realm. We're talking about spirituality here. It's let's step into that spirit. So
coming from the Theravadan tradition, right? It's like, this is the true Buddhist path, right? It's like, okay, these are the teachings. It's like all the other stuff is made up. It's like, maybe it's all made up.
It's all relative construct.
Everything. 500 years after the Buddha's death, they're doing the fucking writing. So there's got to be some made up stuff there.
Sure. All
anyway.
right. One last question. Hopefully this isn't a bleak one, but so I write for a zine called Nar Nar, And
Narnar.
Narnar.
Oh my God, that is so West Coast.
They're from, God, where are they? San Antonio? I can't remember. They're somewhere further west than me. Okay. But yeah, it is very West Coast. Narnar.
Yeah, Narnar. Yeah. Narnar Banks.
Yeah.
Instead of Jar Jar.
So they asked me to write this article about loss, and I just ended up like talking about West Coast. I started to write this article about anytime I'm in Los Angeles, I go to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Okay. And I go meet, go to my rock and roll hero, Dee Dee Ramone's grave. And I don't know if have you ever been to Dee Dee Ramone's grave?
No.
It's so cool because like it's like this black tombstone with like kisses. People that like kiss. There's like lipstick all over it. And at the bottom, his epitaph says, "Okay, I gotta go." And I'm like, "Fuck, that is so fucking. That's awesome." Where it like gives us permission to be like, I passed. I gotta go. Yeah. And it's like, what a great like way of giving permission for people to pass. Okay, I gotta go. Yeah. So on your tombstone, what will it say on your tombstone? What's the epitaph? What's the little last message?
Some fucking interesting, deep questions here. I like it. It takes me a minute to really think of what it would be. These kind of questions, right?
You're taking it seriously, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He was loved and was loved.
Hell yeah. He was loved and loved. What does it say it again?
There's something that me and my kids say a lot together, and something around this, like, I tell my kid, I'm like, when I'm saying bye, I go, love is you. And he says back, you are love. So something in those that like, he was loved and loved, something like that. Like I loved and I was loved and I gave love kind of thing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but something like
that. Makes complete sense. That's awesome.
Okay.
What a great note to leave on. Thank you for doing this podcast with me. So stoked to see where this goes.
Me too. This is going to be great. Yeah. It's going to be amazing, and it already is. And hopefully I didn't give you too much to edit because it's a long one, but feel free. But yeah, I'm honored to do this with you. Just getting to know you has been really great. And this is what it's about, is like Kalyana Mita. I think me and you doing this together, not just...
I got Kalyana Mita tattooed right there.
I love it. And that's like-minded friends on the path. And, I feel like it's so important. And so to get to know you and to do this adventure, to offer stuff that can hopefully be helpful to people and inspiring to people, I think it's great.
All right. Well, there we go. Punks on Hope podcast.
Yeah.
Peace and love all day. Until next time.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mikey.